Generative artificial intelligence, that's Gen AI, despite its rising adoption in the Nigerian tech ecosystem, is still in its nascent stages, emerging as a promising tool for customer engagement and marketing efficiency in Nigerian burgeoning fintech space. According to the latest report from the Nigerian Fintech Marketing Outlook, 29% of the surveyed players in the financial technology space have adopted generative AI for content creation. The report will shed light on the current state and future strategies within the country's fintech ecosystem, highlighted limited awareness, technical challenges, and regulatory uncertainty as part of the numerous factors found to be slowing the adoption of AI. To discuss more on this, I'm now being joined live, not virtually though, but live in our Lagos studio by an AI innovation consultant, Moyiwa Oluwa Dia. Thank you so much for your time with me on the show. It's good to have you again.
Thank you for having me.
Now let's get talking now. Before we dive straight into the conversation, if you're to give your assessment about the adoption of AI in Nigeria, what would you say it is?
I would say when you look at the segments of people who have adopted AI, that is the middle class, the working class, the office goers, the small business owners on Instagram, it's been very good. And I would say that I'm impressed with it. A lot of them use it like for content creation, for basic things, maybe not the more advanced like video creation and all those things, but for the very basics, for doing what majority around the world are using AI for, Nigerians are there. Nigerians are present.
You see, there's something about technology that really, in terms of our acceptance, now speaking about the Nigerian culture or the Nigerian rate of adoption to technological advancement, technological products and then services, we tend to accept all of this product, all of this innovation, but then we don't create. Why is that the case?
So question is, when you are creating, you look at if a Nigerian in Nigeria is going to create, they will first have to look at the local problems you can solve with it. And in order to solve local problems, you need resources.
Yes.
And that is one of the biggest limitations for Nigerians. Creating solutions for local problems using artificial intelligence is not something a typical boy on the street from his dorm room in maybe Unilag can easily do.
Okay.
It is possible, but it's not as easy as maybe say something like cryptocurrency. So artificial intelligence tends to be, unless maybe you are leveraging on existing models, existing work that other people have done, it is very capital intensive, very people intensive. So, and to be frank, the Nigerian market might not be such a big size for you to say, okay, let me use an AI solution to solve this particular problem. If you are going to solve something, you have to look beyond the Nigerian market into the global market. How can I solve global problems using a local context with artificial intelligence? And of course, funding. They say we are in the funding winter.
Yes.
So it's not going to be easy for somebody who has that passion to say, okay, I want to solve a local problem. It's possible, but it's difficult.
So let's talk about the technological ecosystem as a whole now. Most of the startups you're seeing, they are always going into the fintech space, and it's almost looking like the fintech space is almost overcrowded. For every tech innovation we're seeing now, it's tilted towards fintech, trying to bring about that inclusion in the financial service sector, ensuring that people in the rural area have access to financial services, even at the palm, at the slight a tip of their finger. But why are we not looking at the bigger picture beyond fintech? Why are we not taking advantage of all the aspects that all the opportunities that technology brings to us?
So you're looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the bottom of the pyramid, where a lot of people, most of the categories of Nigerians fall into is financial services, payment service. Every Nigerian has to pay. Every Nigerian in one form or the other has to save. So you're saying that when you're developing a fintech solution, you already have such a large market size you're addressing.
Okay.
Whereas if you say that you want to do something like edutech, number one, a lot of, I think the figure is about 50 million Nigerian kids or so, high.
Out of school, right?
Out of school. Obviously, if they're out of school, they don't have access to phones, they don't have access to technology, they don't have access to computers. So that automatically reduces the market size for like an edtech solution. Then if you are saying something like e-commerce, aside from the major cities in Lagos, Abuja,
Port Harcourt, Ibadan,
majority of Nigerians are excluded there. The majority of Nigerians are excluded. If you are looking at transportation, transport tech, you look at the likes of Uber, they have up to 500 or 1 million, 500,000 or 1 million cars just in the Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, the major cities. So that's one of the reasons why fintech is so ubiquitous. Because it solves a problem for a vast majority of Nigerians, and it's also an enabler. If you can get fintech right, other sectors tend to see an explosion in growth. With the advent of Paystack, doing online payments, well, we now see a lot of online vendors on Instagram come up. That's when the paying for your JAM form was easy. Before, I remember those days you had to go to the JAM office, but now you can do that easily online
at the comfort of your living room.
Paying for airline tickets, paying for bus tickets. Now you can do that online because a fintech came and solved that friction there in online payments. So like I said, fintech is an enabler, fintech is a multiplier, and that is really the reason why fintechs are more preferred, especially in this part of the world, than other tech kind of areas. So
with the rate at which some fintech companies actually shut down due to lack of funds, if you are to take a quick look, or better say, let's put it this way, if you are to do a projection of the Nigerian fintech ecosystem, do you see that the momentum we're having now being sustained in the next 5 years from now?
So I think it's about a maturing, right? So most people tend to think of business as a linear space, but it's not really linear. Even in the abroad, there is this kind of Gartner's hype cycle, right? That it kind of tends to go up, it plateaus at a certain level, then it comes down.
It dives down again.
Then it goes there. So I think where we are seeing in fintech right now in Nigeria is the maturing phase. Okay, now we know that in certain areas, in the POS space, there is a dominant leader. In the online payment space, there is a dominant leader. So now people are starting to say that, okay, if I'm going to come into this space, I need to think differently, I need to do differently. What area has not been addressed and has been addressed? 2, 3, 4 years ago, every Tom, Dick and Harry was coming up with a payment app, trying to do a payment app, a website, a payment app, this. But now anybody that wants to go into that field has to think, okay, if I'm going to go in here, how am I going to displace this big player? How am I going to displace the likes of the Paystack, the Flutterwaves, the Money Points, the InterSwitch? And it makes them think more innovative. I like what organizations like Touch and Pay are doing.
Yes,
innovative, thinking outside the box. And there is still a whole lot that can be done in terms of the underbanks, the unserved, in terms of getting them into that tech ecosystem and helping them transact better. At the end of the day, with all the buzzwords we use for fintech and all the glamorous things, it's just to solve a problem. How can people make payments and save money easier? If you are not making somebody who is in Kano market his life easier via payments, what are you really here for?
When it comes to the acceptance of technology, I still realize that that penetration gap is still very huge. Now, you just made mention of doing payment now, transacting business with, let me use the word, the popular, in our parlance, aboki. Okay, so you say a pepper seller and a aboki man who sells pepper, and then he is into that business. He has a bigger shop in the north, and then he needs to transact business and all of that. But we find out that people within that space, that region, have not come to that full acceptance of technology. What do you think has created this lacuna, and how can we fill it up?
So it's about tradition.
Okay.
It's about culture. It's about convenience. For some people, what works for them has been working for them. You have to be the one to go the extra mile to tell them that, hey, and for a lot of those people in those areas, it's like a way of life for them. It's like their tradition. It's like what their grandfathers did, what their fathers did, and then they are not as maybe exposed technologically in their own surroundings than people say in Lagos. So if you are going to adopt it, there needs to be extra marketing, extra marketing efforts, extra educating efforts that, okay, this is the advantage it's going to take. For if you advertise to a place like, say, University of Lagos, come to them with Fintech, you don't really have to, do a lot of one-on-one. They see it, they understand it. But if you are going to a lot of these rural areas, they might see the ad, they might see the banners, they might see everything. They might still need to go for further education. So that is the challenge that these places face. And one of the reasons why a lot of people might not want to embark on it is it's going to be additional costs. It's going to be additional costs. And what are the returns? What are the spending power? The disposable income of people in those areas? Is it worth it? Those marketing efforts. That's why when I said a lot of fintechs don't really look at serving the whole of Nigeria. Look at Chowdeck. Chowdeck is like a darling of the tech space now.
Yeah.
How many markets, how many cities are they in Nigeria? Just very few cities, but they're expanding. They are known globally, right? So, and because the cities they are in are the places where they can get a lot of income.
Yes.
So when you're looking at all these rural areas, the disposable income might not be there, but that doesn't mean there isn't a market. But what you are now looking for is, okay, how can I do something that will have large volumes? So there is always that balance where people are trying to, do this calculation, do their market research and see how they can get everything balanced. And then it doesn't necessarily have to be one person serving the whole country. You could have like these regional fintechs. One person specializing, and I think that might be the next evolution. You might have a fintech that is very strong, maybe the Southwest, another one that is very strong in the North. And I think this is where the government needs to come in, and needs to do some support. If they can say, okay, maybe for the Northeast, we have peculiar challenges that maybe somebody in Lagos might not be really interested in solving. Okay, how can we empower our youths? How can we empower our tech bros and girls that they can build solutions for these things? How can we support them to create a regional force? Those are the kind of thinkings that I think that is the next step for the Nigerian fintech space.
Let's talk about financial inclusion. And before we dive straightly into this conversation, financial inclusion, if you are to rate Nigeria in its level of financial inclusion, how well do you think we've come?
We've come very far when we look at ourselves in isolation. And I think we've done a lot of things that other African countries have looked up to. Where we are now, we have created a lot of solutions. We have chat banking, we have USSD banking, we have mobile apps. So a lot has been done. And then we have the POS everywhere. There is the POS. And I think with what we saw the POS companies doing, a lot of places in the rural areas, people that didn't have bank accounts now are having bank accounts. We have market women now that barely had bank accounts, and they have a POS. So we've really gone far, and I think Nigeria has done well there. We have done well.
All right, let's talk about generative AI. I know that's your area of specialty. Now, how do you assess the current adoption of generative AI within the Nigerian fintech companies compared to the global counterpart?
So I think these are early days. Obviously, the macroeconomics in Nigeria and indeed around the world is a bit, it demands for conservation, right? So in terms of using it for very basic things like content creation, for images, image generation, Nigerian fintech companies have been at the forefront. A flip side to that is, you tend to see anytime now you see an announcement, everybody's excited to announce nowadays. So you see something and say, this is ChatGPT. And you now start thinking, I wish it would be more creative. I use ChatGPT, but sometimes I try not to make it so obvious that this was ChatGPT.
Exactly.
So anything you see now, it comes off. Everybody's using it, from the big ones, the very big ones. Everybody's excited to announce. But
do you think it has brought any form of disruption? And if you have to look at it in the long term, which system do you think the evolution, the revolution brought by ChatGPT and generative AI will bring about disruption in terms of some sectors of the economy?
So what we have seen right now is the Honorable Minister for the Digital Economy is, coming up with this AI, framework for Nigeria, and it's very important gathering stakeholders to sit down to discuss, to come up with an AI framework that will guide the use of AI and see how we can accelerate growth using AI. So in terms of what Nigerian and fintech companies have done, they have done the very basic, but there is a lot of potential for growth.
Okay.
Recently, a fintech unicorn called Klarna, they recently said that Generative, they had they partnered with OpenAI, that's the developers of ChatGPT, and they launched a chatbot which they said automated 70% of their customer service requests. About 4.3 million inquiries or queries from customers, I think in 3 months or so. And the bot was able to handle all that.
Wow.
And before then they said that they were letting go of 700 people. And they're saying that bot can do the work of 700 people. So we are going to be seeing that more and more in the next 1 year, 2 years. We are seeing a lot of companies, a lot of multinational companies. There was one I was seeing, one of the big four, they were hiring for in Nigeria, hiring for generative AI developers, meaning that they see a potential in this, they see a potential here, especially in financial services, how you can help them. In terms of fraud detection, customer service, there is a lot of potential where you can help automate a lot of these things. If Klarna, can say that one bot, their super bot, is doing the work of.
So we should be seeing more of job losses now. And which sectors? I want us to be specific now. Which sectors do you think will be worst hit the most? If you look at it from 5 years from now perspective.
Are you talking about in Nigeria or
generally? No, talking about Nigeria now.
So I think fintech will be, the financial services sector will be hit. So obviously Klarna said they were disengaging some people, and they're saying that in terms of customer service, they're not really hiring there again.
Wow.
Duolingo.
Wow.
Duolingo, Duolingo, that is the language learning app. They recently let go of 10% of their translators because they augmented with generative AI.
That's a big disruption.
That is a big disruption, and we'll start seeing more of that. But like I said, these are early days. We have our banks, which are not necessarily under pressure to take big steps.
Okay.
A lot of them are very profitable, and it might not be, we are definitely going to see it, but I don't think on their end, thinking like one of them, there's no real pressure for them to adopt something very fast. I think a lot of them are going to, take a wait and see approach, and there's just that one person who's going to be the early adopter. They crank out something, it disrupts the market, and everybody jumps in.
All right, now let's talk about challenges now. Of course, where there are prospects, there will definitely be challenges. You've highlighted some of the prospects. Let's talk about the challenges. What challenges or barriers do Nigerian fintech companies face when integrating generative AI into their operations, and how are they going to address these challenges head on?
So obviously, when you're talking about a generative AI, when you're talking about large language models, obviously one of the biggest challenges is hallucination, meaning that the LLM is bringing out an information that isn't necessarily true or completely false or just fabricating something. So there was like a demo we did for a fintech, and when we built this thing, so we noticed that it was coming up, when we started testing, it was coming up with some hallucinations. And I was asking it, we had trained it on a particular knowledge base of a fictitious bank, and we now asked it some questions after we finished building it, and it was coming up with, we asked it, okay, how many branches, because we put a list of branches, and saying, what are your branches in Lagos? And the ones in Lagos, it gave us, and it also started adding some in Abuja. I said, this is a problem. So you have to try to fine-tune that. If you're going to take it to production, there has to be a lot of safety measures. And then, so that is one. Then when you're talking about content creation, you're talking about, the need to be very authentic.
All right.
Very authentic, not something that a lot of people are just going to be like copy and paste. Because for me, when I just see something very lazy copy and paste, it kind of turns me off, especially when you see it from big organizations. You're saying, expect a bit of creativity from you. If you are just going to copy and paste from ChatGPT, how are you different from the upcoming someone on the street?
So let's wrap up this conversation. That time is really not our friend now. In what ways do you think generative AI can contribute to financial inclusion efforts in Nigeria, and what steps are there to be taken to ensure accessibility of these technologies for all demographics?
So in terms of how generative AI can augment the financial inclusion, there are some innovations that can be done. For example, we talked about what Klarna did. Their chatbot was in 35 languages.
Okay.
So you could have something like, a chatbot, an automated chatbot, leveraging on generative AI in a lot of Nigerian languages.
Okay.
You could just have like a screen there, you put it somewhere, somebody just goes there and can start, saving, transacting in their local language, whether in Idoma, in Hausa, in Fulani, that's definitely something that a lot of Nigerian startups can look at, training an LLM in a particular Nigerian language, and just looking at saving, and it can be like self-serve. You're talking about financial inclusion, you can just have like automation. We saw what Klarna did. A lot of people, like there was a statistics I saw, 70% of visitations to physical bank branches was to sort out transaction queries. Every day on X, on Twitter, you see somebody sending a message. First, banks, every bank gets it. Every bank is that. But a chatbot can help automate that process, not only in English, across the different languages in Nigeria. So there is a lot of potential for that.
All right. So we'll leave it at that. Time is really not our friend. So much to talk about. We're definitely going to have you some other time again to join us on the conversation. I'd like to say a big thank you.